Welcome everybody to this webinar about the Master's Program in International Relations in Historical Perspective. My name is Lorena De Vita and I am an assistant professor in the History of International Relations here at Utrecht University. And sitting next to me is one of our best MA students, Parker. Parker, do you want to introduce yourself?
So my name is Parker Beamer. I'm a Canadian student studying International Relations and Historical Perspective as part of the program. I came over here late August and have been loving every second of it ever since. So looking forward to sharing my experiences with you, answering any questions you might have. Don't forget to use the chat box, which we'll explain in a second, to shoot us any questions you might have.
That's fantastic. That's exactly right. So we will be speaking for about half an hour, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But if you have any questions about anything that we are discussing, feel free to use the chat box that you see below on your screens. For me, it's very important to have Parker here as well, because I think, the staff members can explain a lot about what we have in mind when we put together such a master program, but the real experts are the students. So Parker, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
So also, in addition to using the chat box, and we're going to try and address any questions you might have as they pop along, but also remember that we have a Q&A session live at the end. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to write to us. And remember as well that this session is being recorded and we will send it to you via email so that you can watch it again and see if there are any other points that you would like to have any further information about. And in that case, of course, feel free to be in touch. The persons who are helping us behind the screens are Karen, that's us actually, Lorena and Parker, but there's also someone else who's helping us today. Karen and Lisanne, they will be trying and answer your questions as they come in, but we will also, as I said, have the Q&A session at the end, so feel free to get in touch. I'm just going to start by asking you, Parker, how did you like starting the program? We had open day, welcome day, and you see one photo on your screens. That's also in the PowerPoint slide. You can see there's both myself and Parker there. So Parker, how was it? What's your memory?
It was great. So there's me off to the left there. You might be able to see with the yellow circle. And that's us staying in front of the main building of the university. It's an old building. It's about 500 years old, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's one of my favorite places in the whole school. And that's where we kind of kickstarted our whole year, really, as a group. So as part of the process of coming over as an international student, they do a very excellent job at helping you get integrated with the city through some very awesome programming. So for a whole week straight, they put you into a group of similar programming students. So I was with members from my own program, but also some from global governance and from law. So a nice, unique mix of international students. And we all got together with two really great students who were both studying kinesiology at the master's level and who had been here for several years. And they showed us around the city. We got to go to events where we could see what kind of sports and clubs there were available, what kind of services there were, how to get around and use the transit, most importantly, how to use a bike.
Yes, very important when you come to the Netherlands.
How to adapt to the bike lanes and the bike traffic. For those of you who are not aware of what bike traffic is, you will soon find out how much fun that can be. But then one day in the week, we actually met together as a program and got to meet each other and see who we were and where we came from. And it was a remarkably diverse mix of people. And one of the members of the program, the academic staff, Barlou, she sent us on a large scavenger hunt around the city. Yes. It was a picture scavenger hunt where we had to use subtle little pictures and very vague clues and figure out where in the city they were. And it kind of took us all around the entire old city core. And then finished off at a nice bar where we could kind of meet with the rest of the program again and some of the professors. But it was a very nice introduction, and it kind of summed up an earlier part of the day where we're kind of getting a brief overview. But it was a very nice start to the program, especially because it was a warm, sunny day.
Yes, that's true. And I have to say, today is also a very beautiful sunny day, and that's when Utrecht is at its best. This is a very wonderful location, and I think we're very lucky. We should mention this as well, because this is not just a very central location within the Netherlands. So we have a great network system. You can be in Germany in 2 hours, in Belgium in less than 2 hours, but also the city is absolutely beautiful, and the university facilities as well. And it's true, as Parker said, as part of our introduction day, we don't just include some information about the program, but we also try and create this sense of community, which is so important for us. Just to give you a couple of pointers about the program and its main features, we are a one-year program, so you will collect 60 EC during your year, throughout your year. And this is a course that we teach through the medium of English. So it's an English language program, and it's also numerous clauses. This means that we cannot accept more than 60 students a year. And on the one hand, we realize this puts some pressure on the prospective applicants, because of course you want to put together the best possible application materials. But on the other hand, from our perspective, it's very important to keep the numerous clauses so that we ensure that there is a very good ratio of staff per students. Because what we also like to foster really is this sense of community. It's a multicultural, multilingual community, but where also staff and students are in touch, not just during the seminars, during the lectures, but also as an intellectual community. And this is very, very important for us in the sense that our students are also very important connections that we keep also after the program is ended. And we do so in a variety of ways. And if you want to know more, please ask us during the Q&A, and we can tell you more about our LinkedIn groups, for example, and how the Utrecht University student and the International Relations MA then keeps in touch with the former students as well. You will have seen on our website that we are consistently rated as one of the best, actually the best in the field of IR in the Netherlands. And you might be asking yourself, why? Parker, what would you say? Why do we consistently have this great result?
I think there's a number of factors that go into it, minus the fantastic teaching staff. I think one of the main selling points, and at least was one of the main selling points for me, was this fusion between history and political science. A lot of IR programs that I researched, and I spent almost 2 years researching programs to find the right fit, so I can tell you I've done a lot. But most of them tend to either take more of a historical angle or more of a strictly political science or international relations angle. This program is, and what's known for, is that synthesis between the two and really bridging the gap between the past and the present, and kind of finding interdisciplinary ways to study the contemporary world. So that was one of the main selling points for me, as well as the fact that there are 3 distinctive clusters, which I'll let Lorena touch on. But these clusters are fluid, and they're not, they don't tie you. You have to study this, you have to study that. You can move in and out of them and learn different things based on your own personal interests and specialities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What Parker said was also valid from my perspective as a member of staff. So one of the reasons that really led me to want to join Utrecht University after my studies in Italy and in the United Kingdom was exactly, and also my work in the UK, was the emphasis that Utrecht University and this specific MA program places on the fact that international relations theory and international history do not exist independently of one another. In other words, in order to understand history, in order to make sense of the events of the world, one needs to have some kind of theoretical understanding of what the key concepts might be in order to unpack the complexities of the historical world. But on the other hand, it's impossible to do just theory without connecting the theory to some events that have happened, have taken place in the world. Now, here in DMA, in International Relations in Historical Perspective, we really try and blend these two disciplines, and we really try and connect, really create bridges between these. This is something which is very, very important for us, and there is a lot of emphasis which is placed on it. And also, as Parker was saying, this connection between past and present. The idea is not just to focus on the past, but also to start unpacking the historical origins of some of the seemingly intractable problems that we see take place in the world today, and place them in a broader historical perspective that helps us to understand their origins, but also perhaps can help us brainstorm about possible solutions or future developments as well. Now, beyond this connection between the past and the present, but also between history and theory, our work is connected to three main clusters, as Parker was saying. These clusters are the following. First, Europe and the world. Second, security and conflict. And third, globalization and empire, or global relations as well. These clusters relate to the research expertise of various lecturers that are actively involved in the program as well. What does it mean? It means that in practice, students have the benefit of studying with people who have dedicated years of their life to research topics that fall under one or more of these clusters. So that means not only that the students are exposed to the top experts in these fields, but also, on the other hand, that students can actively contribute to shape these fields of study. And these are fields that span both theoretical disciplines such as political science or international relations theory, but also history, global history, and international history. This is for us also very important, and it puts the program in connection with a variety of societal partners as well, so also with the policy-making world, and not just as part of a vibrant academic community, which we take pride in, of course. And in terms of selecting courses, as Parker said, when you create your own program for DMA, and I will give you a better sense of what to expect at which stage of the program as well. But you are also free to combine these clusters in the way that you prefer, and this is reflected in the courses that you follow. Parker, what kind of choice did you make? So what courses are you following now? What courses did you follow before?
Yeah, so in the first term, you have to follow two core courses. That's the Modern World and State Systems, which focuses predominantly on political science theory and kind of the main tenets that shape a lot of international relations thought. And then the second part, the second course that's mandatory, is the International Relations in Practice, which kind of looks at kind of concrete primary sources and some of the main methods and tools that practitioners of international relations use, and kind of studying them to figure out the tricks of the trade, so to speak. But in addition to that, you have to take a research seminar, which falls under one of the three categories. So the one that I chose to take based on my interest was one called Securing the World, which focuses on security studies from the 1800s up until the present. Now this term I'm taking two courses, one of which is called the Environment and International Relations, which falls under the Security and Conflict category, because we do focus a lot on some of the ways that the environment is impacting a lot of global conflicts and causing contention around the world in ways that you might not necessarily know or thought of before. And then the second one that I'm taking is actually a course with Arena, which is talks about the international dimensions of the Middle East conflict, particularly in Israel-Palestine. And that one falls under the globalization and global governance, because the focus is how on international actors play a major role in what might seem just like a domestic conflict. So it's really up to you. And I had full choice of which ones I wanted to take, and it was based on my interest. So I've mostly focused on combining the globalization stream with the security and conflict stream. But I do have several colleagues who might have taken the Europe one in the first term, and now their two electives this term are from the security and conflict and from the globalization. So it's a very diverse mix, or you can choose to be a bit more specific and kind of hone in. So there's a lot of room to really shape it how you want, as Lorena said.
Yes, and I have to say that is absolutely very, very important for us. So you can see in the slide we have the year is divided into 4 periods, and we call them blocks. In each block you follow different types of courses, but it's very important to explain that the first half of the year, so the first semester, has really is courses heavy. So that is really the taught part of the masters. And then in the second half of the year, you're free to choose and in terms of the activity that you would like to follow, including, for example, applying for an internship abroad or in the Netherlands, or support us in one of the projects in which you can cooperate. And these are projects between Utrecht University, so the staff, but also societal partners. You can see on the slide, period 1 and period 2, these are the ones that Parker was just talking about. And the courses are these modern world and the state system, as well as IR in practice. They are intended to give you an introduction and to the theoretical and historical modes of thinking, see how we can combine them, for example, but they also include other activities. So, for example, in the IR in practice course, you also have a UN simulation, which the students always find very exciting.
Definitely the best part of the course so far.
Yeah, this is really a must. So you absolutely are welcome to enjoy that part of the course as well. It also takes place in a beautiful location this year. It was in the Provincie House. But the idea is that we want to introduce you not just to being in the classroom and reflecting on theoretical or historiographical debates, but also try and invite you to put yourselves in the shoes of the policymakers having to make difficult choices based on a limited amount of information on certain dilemmas. And then it's true. So period 1 starts with the research seminar that is along one of the 3 clusters, and you select which one you would like to follow once you know that you have been accepted in the program. And then the research seminar part also goes on into the second period of the year, and where you really focus on writing your own research paper based on a topic that you're most interested in. You combine this together with 2 electives, and Parker already gave you a great idea of what you can expect, but these are courses that include the Cold War in Europe, the history of Spain, the politics of the environment, and also broader theoretical questions about how do we cope with the past, for example, in Peter Malcontent's course, or what kind of role are Asian countries playing in global politics today with Professor Remco Rabben, and that's another big favorite among our electives as well. The second part of the year, I mentioned, you're really free to follow what kind of course you would like to follow in broader terms, though. I don't just mean it in terms of courses, seminars and lectures, but we articulate the curriculum along 3 main tracks: the practice track, the research track, and the applied research track. These entail different choices. So in the practice track, you are free to choose an internship. As I said, this can be in the Netherlands or abroad, and it can also be with a variety of organizations. So I have some students who have decided to intern, for example, at an embassy abroad, or with their foreign ministry, or with an NGO, and so on and so forth. And the students really treasure this kind of opportunity because it really provides them with the possibility to reflect in practice on issues that we may have debated in class. The second track is the research track. It's specifically aimed to those who want to pursue an academic career and would like to write, for example, a longer thesis, reflecting a little bit more intensively and more deeply on the various methodologies and research methods and methodologies that they might employ. So they also produce a longer thesis, and they have a deadline which is later in time in the academic year to allow them the possibility of really having this intense research experience also. The applied research track is a sort of compromise solution between the two, because on the one hand, you will be based at Utrecht University, but you will also be doing an internship. And these internships, these labs, that's how we call them, they stem from a cooperation between us, the staff at Utrecht University, but also a societal partner. Just to give you some examples, we had a very successful intelligence lab with one of the foremost experts in intelligence studies, Professor Bob de Graaf, who cooperated together with Boom, which is a very renowned publisher here in the Netherlands. Together with students, they created learning material, which is now being used by many of the security and intelligence agencies in order to understand what are the core elements of intelligence, for example. And the students have found this a very valuable opportunity. Some of them went on to work in fields like journalism, for example, or education. There is another lab which I am going to be setting up together with my colleagues, Lorraine Crump and Frank Gerritz. And this is going to be about the history of the Cold War, where we try and put together materials in order to make the most of the sources that are available online and that can really help us to understand the Cold War, the history and politics of the Cold War in a new way. So these are some of the examples. Parker, do you know already which track you want to follow?
Yeah, so I am going to be following the practice track by taking an internship. But what Lorena didn't touch on, which I think is very valuable to note too, is also the flexibility in how and when you do your internship. There's actually a number of acquaintances I've made from the program last year who were able to land longer internships with their foreign ministries. So because of that, they got to do 6 months and get really, really hands-on experience. One of them worked in development in Africa, and then the other one was specializing on East Asian affairs. But both of them were allowed to extend what they were working on in terms of their thesis. So they're finishing up their thesis now. But also there is a bit of opportunity to kind of flip when you do the thesis and when you do the internship. So for me, I'm going back to Canada to do my internship, likely with a political party. And because of that, most internships in Canada start in May. So I'll be doing my thesis first and then doing my internship after. So there is a lot of flexibility in that regard.
Exactly. So, and it's important to start brainstorming about this, but the actual choice you will be making by January. So that's why it's also a work in progress as well. But it's true, we try and favor flexible program. The internships can take place in a variety of settings, including the EU as well, the United Nations, Foreign Ministry, but also other domains as well. This is also depending on what kind of career you would like to pursue after the end of the MA. And our students and alumni, they end up in very different fields. It really depends on what kind of passions they have and what kind of projects they would like to pursue. And we're very proud in terms of also the employment numbers that we have after in terms of our alumni, and our network is really quite broad. This is also helpful for the students who are enrolled in the program, because through our network, through our the alumni network, that also opens possibilities for the current students as well, and we value this very much. So just to summarize, essentially, we hope we have made clear that in terms of faculty, and thanks to this research-led approach to teaching, we really try and put our students in touch with the best among the faculty, the utmost experts on the various fields, including the Cold War, the history of Africa, the history of security and intelligence, and more. In terms of network, we have a very extensive one, and it includes various societal partners, but at the same time, what we really take pride in is the international community that makes our master so special, our master program so special. And this is valid for the staff, but it's also valid for our students. And we all take pride in the wonderful city in which we are located, in which the university has been located since 1636, so for quite a while now. So we have made clear the outline of the program and what we essentially do, what you can expect to do when you're here, but what do you need to do in order to get here? In terms of the entry requirements, you can find a lot of information about this online, but in terms of tips that we can give you, what I would highlight is that it's very important for you to show that you're able to interpret and understand complex international and historical processes, and that you're able to do research on them independently. And we will assess your application materials very thoroughly. But do make sure to communicate to us what your contribution to our program could be. What kind of languages do you speak? What kind of experience you have accumulated? You do so, among other documents, by writing a motivational letter, also sending us your CV and a 500-word writing sample. This can be on any historical or current development that you want to tackle, but make sure to show that you can be analytical, that you can be critical, that your argument is logical and well structured, and that you can present your thinking in a compelling and clear way. So that's essentially what we're looking for. And of course, we ask also proof of your English language proficiency, unless, as in Parker's case, then unless English is your mother tongue. And in that case, if you're a native speaker, then you're safe in that sense, at least. In terms of the deadline and the important dates to keep in mind, our application deadline is on the 1st of April 2020, and we will process your application materials within 6 weeks. There is also something very important that I would like to highlight here. If you want to be eligible for one of our scholarships, your application deadline is a little bit earlier than that. So make sure to apply by the 1st of February 2020. If you want to apply for the Holland scholarship, in case you are a student from a country outside of the European Union, or for the Bright Minds Fellowship, if you are EU citizen. So on our part, in terms of the presentation, this is all for now, but we will start taking some of the questions. Parker, did we get some interesting questions, or
Yes.
some questions we can answer?
We've got a couple. Do you want to start with the first one?
Of course. So let's see. So we have Boris from Germany asking about extracurricular activities, and I think that's a very good one, actually, and that's something that we didn't really touch upon. So I'm very happy to start answering, but Parker, I will also ask you for some for your perspective on them. So we talked a lot about what we do in terms of the courses that we offer and the fact that we cover a very broad thematic and geographical angle. But the master program also has a very lively extracurricular list of events. And these include meetings that we call Meet the Experts. We have this series of Meet the Expert meetings in which the students are in touch with some of the utmost experts from other fields, not necessarily academia, but also policy making and journalism, for example, in which students can interact with some of these experts. We have, for example, one representative from PAX, the NGO, very famous transnational one, which is coming to talk to us next week, and we're very happy to host them. But we also had other ones, including with scholars from Harvard University talking about the politics of nuclear weapons in East Asia. And I believe, Parker, you also helped.
2 weeks ago,
yeah.
we had an expert come in who is an academic, but who also does a lot of policy consulting, particularly with the British government, Duncan DePledge. And he came in to discuss with us rising tensions in the Arctic, which for me was particularly interesting because I wrote a paper last block, and I plan to do my thesis on something related to the Arctic and security in the region. So it was fascinating to have someone come in who's actually responsible for influencing the British government's stance on the Arctic, and actually talk with him and question him and see just what he had to say about the Arctic, someone who's been to the region, who's studied it for a very long time. And the actual way we set up the discussion was an interview. So me and a fellow student, we interviewed him when he came in for the class, and then we moderated a question and answer session afterwards. And it was a really fascinating way to kind of unpack his thoughts and his views without kind of the rigidness that often comes with paper talks when academics come to the university, and usually it's a larger scale audience, so they can't necessarily afford to have such a question-based environment. But because of the program and how they try to set up these Meet the Expert session where it's just us, we can really kind of unpack their perspectives and their ideas and really hone in on specific elements that we want to learn more about or know more about.
Absolutely. And this component of having the students not just as audience, but really as active participants, it's something that is crucial for us. And this is really important in terms of both how we teach in the classroom, but also in terms of all the extracurricular events that we put together. And as I said, it's a very rich program in that sense as well, in terms of extracurricular activities also. I see that
I think outside of the classroom as well, we do have quite a bit of extracurricular opportunities. One of the ones that we actually started this year is the student task force. So it's made up of a number of students from within the program, and they're working to find ways to continue keeping us connected, especially during the next semester, when a lot of us will not be in the city, or will be abroad, or kind of coming and going. But we try to organize fun little events to kind of keep the group very close. So I'm actually part of that team, and we've been working on doing events almost every week, ranging from bowling to LinkedIn workshops to Christmas parties, to just study sessions together. So we've really found ways to kind of connect in that sense. And then even broader still, there is a lot of different related clubs and societies on campus. The History Society, CS Ubuntu, which is a conflict and human rights club. And then there's also SIB, which is the International Relations Club. And then beyond that, there's also general interest. I've found ones ranging from food clubs to sports teams. So there's really something for everyone extracurricular. And a lot of people in the program are part of these. So it's a nice way to stay in touch with the people in the program, and also go and meet new people as well. So.
Yeah, that's very true. I see that there is another question that I think is very important to answer. Isulu is asking about having a degree in history, but without having work experience, and this person is interested in applying and wants to know a little bit more about how to go about it. So I'll just start with a couple of general pointers. First of all, this is a case of someone with a background in history, but this is something which is important for me also to say. Even if your background is not in history or international relations, but if you can demonstrate that you have a real passion for the subject, then do apply as well, because we are interested in putting together a very diverse group, including people with different academic backgrounds as well. But in this case of having a degree in history without work experience, these, of course, I would have to look at the application package in particular, but definitely if all the entry requirements are met, then do send us your applications, and you can rest assured that we will look at it very closely. And also, for example, maybe this person does not really have work experience, but perhaps some volunteering experience. There may be some other, again, extracurricular competencies that this person has put together, some language skills as well. Make sure to highlight all of this in your application materials, because we will take your materials very seriously, and we're interested in really whatever backgrounds you might have as well. Fantastic. Then I think maybe this was the last question, but perhaps, Parker, do you want to say a little bit more about your perception of the application process and how long it took you to put the materials
for those
together?
of you who might be nervous about the process, it certainly does require work. You shouldn't just shoulder it off and think like it's nothing. But it's not really as challenging as it might seem. I know there are a lot of requirements to fulfill, but it's a generally straightforward process. And I think one of the most good elements of it is that the international office is always there to help you, and so is the program. I emailed intensely with both members of the faculty and with the international office. They probably got fed up with me, but they always emailed back within a day or two maximum. So they were very, very helpful and could answer all the questions. And I heard back relatively quickly from once I submitted it, saying that everything had been received and gave me the next steps. So it's quite an easy process. Overall, it probably took me a week or so to organize all of my documents and write some of the required components of it. But I think it's something that was very rewarding to do, because I got to be here. And like I said, there's a lot of help and support along the way if you need it. So don't forget that as well.
Exactly, that's very important. If you have any other questions, of course, you can look up the requirements online. You can always drop us an email at humanities@uu.nl, and we try and really get back to you as quickly as possible. Don't forget that this session, as I mentioned at the beginning, is being recorded. So if there is any point that you would like to look at again, perhaps on the slides or some of the things that we may have mentioned, feel free to do so, and this will be circulated to you via email as well. And for the moment, we would like to thank you very much for having joined the session with myself and Parker today. And we really very much hope to see you soon in Utrecht. Good luck with the application.
Thanks.